Welcome to VERSED, the ASCAP podcast. I'm your host, Eric Philbrook. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's the perfect time to explore some of the issues affecting our beautiful music creator community. As the weather warms up and music festival season starts, so many artists will hit the road to do what they do best, share their music live in person with the world and bring joy to millions of people. But the flip side of all that joy is the terrible toll that it can take on creators' mental and physical health. One of the first steps to addressing a problem is to understand it better, which is why I'm happy to introduce our guest today. In a 2022 paper in the Journal of Psychiatric Research, Dr. Chayim Newman and Zack revealed some sobering statistics from a 239-question survey of more than 1,100 touring professionals. They discovered that people working in the music industry have rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide risk 5 to 10 times higher than the normal population. That's an astonishing statistic, but probably not surprising to many of our members who spend much of the year on the road facing many challenges. Since banding together in 2020, Newman and Borer have proven to be the foremost thought leaders at the intersection of mental health and the music industry, having been quoted in articles by Spin, Pitchfork, and many other publications. Recently, they expanded their practice with the launch of Amber Health, a company that offers a broad suite of mental health services to help treat the root causes of this mental health crisis and to provide solutions for the music industry. To date, with science-based research under their belt, they've worked with such organizations as the Newport Folk and Jazz Festivals, the Country Music Association, Live Nation, as well as top artists in the industry. Dr. Chayim Newman and Zack are a true force for good in the music community, and I'm thrilled to share with you this illuminating conversation to better understand the challenges artists face and some of the ways we can take care of ourselves and each other. Well, welcome Dr. Chayim Newman and Zack to the ASCAP podcast.
Nice to be here with you, Eric.
You are experts in an area of the music industry that is very near and dear to ASCAP, and that is the health and well-being of our members and the challenges that so many creative people in the music industry are confronting. And we're coming out of a pandemic in which it was a real crisis, and now that live music is roaring back to life, you know, the festival season is starting. A lot of our members are kind of getting back on the road and confronting all the challenges that pose. So I guess I'd like to start with how each of you got involved in this arena and how you met and started your partnership.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us. It's really nice to be here. It's really nice to be able to continue to have these conversations and sort of spread the message and share with people not only the work that we do, but that this is a real thing that is happening in the industry, and we're not alone in this, and that it's something that's felt by all the humans in the industry. And so we're just happy to be here. So I'm Zack Borer. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist based out of Los Angeles. And the short of it is my background is I was a performer for about a decade as a singer-songwriter. And throughout my journey as an artist, I was sort of suffering silently in my own mental health issues, and had some depression and heightened levels of anxiety, and was coping with those things in maybe the not so healthiest ways. And as I looked around me and I looked for specific help, specialized help with mental health practitioners who really understood the industry and what I was going through, I didn't see any. And, a decade's worth of pursuing a creative endeavor and sort of not having it yield the results that I wanted to made me kind of take a hard look at my life and where I was and where I wanted to go. And through my own therapy and career coaching, I landed on becoming a therapist in this field. And so now for the last 10 years or so have been laser focused on providing therapeutic support for those in the industry and artists. And a couple of years ago, or actually about 3 or 4 years ago, was introduced to Chayim through a mutual friend of ours on the agency side. And we just clicked, and sort of we're living parallel lives in our own ways, in our own sort of past journeys and our therapeutic journeys. And one of the things that Chaim and I really shared together was, how do we bring services at a larger level to the music industry? Something we say a lot is, between our own private practices, perhaps we can see 70 people a year, and that's pretty much with a full caseload for each of us. But what about the other 170,000 people in this industry who make their living? And so together over the past several years have created Amber Health, and are really focused on continuing to deliver high quality mental health services to all aspects of the industry that we know are scalable, that we know will touch thousands and thousands of people a year. And we're just getting started, and really grateful to be here doing the work.
In 2022, you put out the paper in the Journal of Psychiatric Research that revealed what probably a lot of musicians knew instinctively, but you actually had some real statistics that proved a lot of the challenges and the problems and the crisis that was really happening. So could tell us a little bit about some of the findings from your research.
So what's interesting is, in a way, to understand the findings, you kind of got to take a step back to where the research started. And, a little bit of that coming out of the world of academia, and I sort of am in the, came through the PhD realm as not only a clinician, but also a researcher. And in 2019, just as Zack and I were meeting, along with a group of other really remarkable human beings who now all sort of work together with us at Amber Health, as we began to just develop the idea, as Zack said, of scaling out services and being able to support this industry clinically, one of the things we realized is, like, there was just no real data looking at the hard mental health outcomes and some of the factors that drive those mental health outcomes. It just didn't really exist. There's a lot of anecdotal stories of people going, well, we know this is a problem in the industry. We know that there's really high levels of, alcohol use or depression, but there's no real numbers. And, there were some small studies that were done by various organizations and groups within the industry, but most of those weren't sort of like, these like IRB approved, very academic, very thought out. I mean, we spent almost a year deciding which questions and the phraseology of the questions to put in the survey, right? Which we then ran in 2020, just prior to the pandemic. The really interesting thing about that is, so recognizing this need for real hard data on which we could then go ahead, Zack and I, and build the programs to be able to service this industry. We kind of got the last swath of data prior to the pandemic, and we started collecting data on February 2nd of 2020. Oh, wow. And then stopped collecting data. We had planned to keep the survey open for months. We were targeting getting about 5,000 or 6,000 industry members and creatives. And 5 weeks in early March, we were like, well, whatever is happening in the universe is not good. And it's going to greatly skew the data, because asking people, how much anxiety they have working in this industry is different than asking people how much anxiety they have working in this industry in the midst of a pandemic or when your industry shuts down. And so to protect the data in the sense of that the data would just tell us what the nature of working in this industry is, not that plus the impact of a pandemic, we actually closed data collection just in early March. And so we only had this like 5-week period. And during those 5 weeks, we had about 1,400 people fill out the survey. So, if I'm not great at math, but if you 239 questions times 1,400 people, it's about somewhere in the realm of 300,000 data points.
Yeah, that's significant. Yeah.
Yeah, which allowed us, I mean, it is the largest study in the history of the music industry looking at, what we looked at. And I mean, the numbers were staggering, right? It's, rates of depression that are almost 7 times higher than the outside of the industry population, right? And depending on how exactly you look at the data and who you include, it's, somewhere between 34 and 50% of people were at risk for clinical depression, right? Rates of stress levels that are on par with the highest stress professions, things like being a first responder or being a hospital frontline employee. So incredibly high rates of stress, the use of things like alcohol and other unhealthy coping mechanisms. Almost 50% of people who tour report drinking alcohol every single day on the road, right?
Right.
So the impacts of that. And then maybe, in some senses, what we look at is the outcome that we are most attempting to, the number we're trying to drop the most significantly was that 26% of people that we surveyed reported that in the previous year, they either had attempted to take their life or thought about it to the point where they were like, well, here's maybe how I would do it, right? And, that's 3 out of every 12 people on your tour bus, right?
Wow, that's really shocking. What are the conditions that drive these numbers? There are some obvious ones, like just not, being on the road and being in a different environment every night, or being in the same environment but in a different part of the country. And what are the biggest challenges that music creators face that create these harmful effects?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'll speak to one part and I'll let Zack speak to the other part of it. I think the one part which is the interesting, I'll let Zack talk about the ways that the industry and being sort of a human in this industry is challenging. One of the interesting pieces before that is that, it's also possible that this industry self-selects for people, who might have wobblier mental health, right? And it is,
Right.
It's like people who are not, if you're looking for a stable 9 to 5, stay at home kind of, have a consistent routine, you're probably not entering a lot of sectors of the music industry, right? And this industry draws a certain type of person. And, we know that creatives live at the fringes of experience, which is part of where creativity lies. But it also means that emotionally, it's where some of the emotional intensity lies. And so it's possible one part of this might be actually that going into the industry, right before the first day that someone walks into their career as a songwriter or a performer or a tech or someone who works at a company in the industry, they already might be a little more vulnerable and predisposed to some of the mental health challenges that we see. And so that's kind of just one piece that I think people don't think about a lot. And they're like, well, what are the pressures? It's like, but going in, we already might be more vulnerable.
It's interesting because if you think about the data and something that I've learned a lot about being around the research side of what we do is that we don't know why exactly these numbers are the way that they are. But we do know, and I'm sure for anybody listening to this, for anybody who has people they know and love who are in the industry, we know that it's just a tough industry. Like you said, Eric, it's being away from family and friends for extended periods of time, right? The instability of jobs, not really knowing where they're coming from. We know that the entire landscape and the ecosystem of the recording industry has changed significantly over the last 10 or 15 years, right? The financial payouts have changed, the way that the economics work, the need to tour has become so much greater to be able to make a living, doing it, to be able to support yourself. we also know that this is an industry that has promoted drugs and alcohol in so many ways. There is a party element to it. So, if you sort of look at the contextual aspects of being in this industry, and then like Chayim said, if you put a vulnerable person or who may be more vulnerable inside a system with all of these emotional landmines, as we call them, the outcomes can be catastrophic. And that's what we see. And that's what we see on an everyday basis doing the work that we're doing. It's a stressful environment at any level. And so those are some of the sort of like the sort of top line things that we can mention.
Can I throw in one more? Just because I think so many people listening are really in the creative output side of this, right? They're creators, whether singers, songwriters, performers of one sort or another. And, recognizing that one of the challenges of being an artist or a creator, right, is like we tie our sense of self to our creative output. It's not like there's me and then there's the stuff I create over there. It's like I am the stuff that I create. And Zack and I talk about this a lot, the pressures of today's instant feedback world. And it's like, you create a new song or something that you're involved in a project, right? And it's like 10 minutes later, it's, some snippet of it is released on Instagram. And 30 seconds after that, you're getting feedback already from the world. And you might have a whole bunch of internet trolls or people that just, maybe don't connect to it and are very comfortable expressing cruel or negative feedback. And so, and this isn't, and again, our experience isn't like, oh, it's feedback about that thing over there. It's like, it's feedback about me and my sense of self in the world, because we tie ourselves so closely to what we create. And so, that attachment really creates, I think, a profound suffering for people. And both Zack and I have seen this a lot show up where even people who have had success, it's like, but success isn't linear. Not every song you release or that you write, it achieves the same place on the Billboard charts, right? And if that says something about my sense of self, which is all the way up here, but then it's all the way down there, and then it's here, and then it's there, right? Like that level of instability around our sense of okayness in the world and our sense of self-worth can be incredibly damaging for people.
Absolutely. So during the pandemic, I would say one of the silver linings is that there was a greater discussion about mental health, and I think more artists were open to discussing it and being a little bit more upfront about their own personal challenges. And I'm talking mostly about just even on social media. You saw people coming out and just saying, I'm dealing with this, I'm struggling with this. From your perspective, do you think there's less of a stigma surrounding artists dealing with some of these challenges, or people being more upfront about talking about it?
I think the pandemic did allow a space to open for a lot of people to not only disclose that they were suffering or maybe having a hard time, but also have community around that they were feeling this as an industry and as a whole. Like the music industry was impacted unlike any other industry in the entire world. And I think there was a sense of fellowship in a way for creators to come together to say, like, I'm feeling this too, and you're feeling this too. I do think that the ability to slow down from the biggest executives in the world to the independent artists did sort of create a bit more balance where people were able to communicate about the struggles that were happening, and say, I'm struggling too. One of the things that Chayim and I were able to do over the pandemic, and like sort of feel honored to be able to do, is right when the pandemic happened, we sort of knew that as the industry was shutting down, that people were really going to need a place to go because no one knew how long it was going to be. And I think on March 16th, we started our first free online support group for people in the industry, and we had no idea how many people we were going to expect on that first call. And I remember sitting there watching the Zoom number climb from 10, 20, 30, 100, 200, 300, 400 people. And it was like, holy shit, like people need a place to go. So to answer your question, Eric, I think that people got a little bit more comfortable knowing that they weren't alone in the things that they were going through, and were able to voice that a lot, and to share with the world what they were going through. And I do think it has opened up opportunities within the industry, to say we can do better. We can do better to care for all of our people here. And I think that's really where Amber Health enters, is sort of like, for the first time, we believe that we've created a place to go to should people need comprehensive help from people who really get it and understand it.
Right. I mean, speaking of people who really get it, since we were introduced through the folks at Newport Folk Festival, tell me a little bit about what you guys did there, as sort of a template for how what you do can be brought to a wider community of musicians and music creators.
Well, the great thing about festivals is, in some ways, they're like, the trade shows, as it were, of this industry, right? Where you get, like, where else do you get a gathering of 100 or 500 or 1,000 artists over a weekend in one place? And the really unique thing about Newport is they've cultivated such it's so thoughtful in the way that they not only offer an amazing experience to, like, the patrons and the fans who are attending the festival, but it's really designed to be a transformative and powerful experience for the artists performing at the festival. And you hear so many artists talking about their experience at Newport as being, like a highlight in their career, even though it's not the largest festival, and right, it's not the biggest stage, but there's something deeply meaningful about it. And, and so in our work, recognizing that festivals were an amazing place to be able to, in the back of house, not only facilitate these conversations within the artist and the creative and the industry community, but to be able to provide people with a little taste of, like, here's 3 days of what it looks like to get your mental health nurtured and cared for, and open that experience in people. Newport was really the first of, and now we do this at a whole bunch of festivals all over North America, but Newport was really the first of all the festivals to approach us and say, we want to do this. We want to be, sort of like the leaders and the pioneers, like Dylan Goes Electric, and it's like, we want to be the ones to take a lead role in making sure that we as a festival are supporting the artists that come through in a really deep and powerful way. And so the Amber team is now, we're going into year 3, right? Year 3, being there on site with a team, supporting every artist and crew member who walks through, who wants to participate. And it's expanded from just being able to provide mental health support in sort of mini support sessions and little workshops and meditation groups and breathwork groups, to being able to run back of house sober support meetings every single day for artists and crew and festival team who are in the recovery journey or thinking about the recovery journey. We also have a physical health component where we're helping people learn how to, because the interplay between physical and mental health is pretty deeply connected, and helping people learn how to manage injury prevention on the road and how to better take care of their bodies. And it's an amazing experience, and we love being partnered with them. It's really a wonderful community, the Newport community.
So switching for people who do get it, like Newport, there are so many entities that surround an artist's career. You've got your your booking agent, your manager, who needs to get it, who needs to get it more than anyone, that taking care of a music creator's mental health and well-being makes everything else better.
Zach, I'm going to let you step on the landmine.
I think the fascinating thing about the work that we do is yes, it is the artist. It is absolutely the artist and the creator and the person in the studio and the recording engineer and the producer. But it's also all of the people around the artists who are suffering as well. And one of the things that we really think about at Amber is the artist is the person on stage, but there can be sometimes 40, 50, 200 people in the background helping that artist get to where they are, who are all suffering as well. And so I think when you look under the hood a little bit and you start talking to the booking agent or the manager or the marketing person at the label or the co-writer who maybe is in the room with the artist, everyone's going through their own journey and is having, I don't say everybody's having a hard time, but we find the consistency that like people are struggling at every single level of the industry. So we think very thoughtfully about looking at the entire system of the industry. And absolutely, it is the artist who has their own sort of, myriad of issues that they're going through. But as you look at all of the various moving parts and all of the various different people helping to create the work and create the world that we all love, it's like there's different stressors everywhere, and that's something that we really think about a lot as we do this work. So, I mean, but generally, if everybody is doing better and has better relationships with one another, has better communication, ultimately we free up the artist to create better work, right? Which then helps everything move better, move more healthy, with less opportunity for it to derail, for less miscommunication. And it's something that we think about at all levels of the industry.
Eric, can I add something to that for a moment?
Please.
Is one of the interesting things that frequently comes up with us is, our point of entry to a team, right? If we're working with an artist team or a tour, looks so completely different in every case, right? And sometimes it's the business manager who's like the one calling us, and sometimes it's the production manager on a tour, and sometimes it's the artists themselves, and sometimes it's the manager or the agent, right? And it really does look different every time. The one place I think that is worth extra pointing to is, management is in such a unique role because they're so involved, typically in a day-to-day and invested in the careers of the creatives. And so they see what's going on, and they're often the ones, maybe like pushing the, some of the agendas that can create stress and challenges for creatives. And they're also in such a powerful position to help because they often have access to, the money and the resources, and can, and hold influence with the teams and the creatives. And so, the more managers are able to value this and see this as just a smart investment, it's like the investment in your, even if you're a manager who's less about like the human experience and more about like the profitability, it's like just investing in your humans so they can keep doing things at a very high level, like Zack said, is just a smart investment, right? And it's like,
right.
Take care of your producers. And then the interesting thing, which Zack pointed out before, is, we'll go on a call with a bunch of managers or a big management company, and they'll be like, oh, well, we have this artist in crisis and whatever. And like, we keep trying to orient them in two ways, which is like, mental health is not like taking care of your mental health is not just for people in crisis. It really is about the, ounce of prevention and being able to work before we're at a crisis level to help people strengthen and have better tools to manage their inner experience as they move through their careers and their creative output in this industry. And then the other part is like, is like the sort of embody what you preach. And so all the managers are like, well, we want to take care of our artist in crisis. And then like Zack said, we're like, wait, how are you doing?
Right.
How are all the people in your office managing their experience and feeling this week? And so I think the more that we can get the people behind the creatives to not just recognize the value of this, but also to like invest in their own mental health, that like Zack said, the whole system begins to shift.
Right. That's an excellent point. So what are some simple, easy ways that music creators can take care of themselves, whether they're in crisis or not, while they're either on the road or in the thick of a creative, a period? What's some advice that you would give to music creators to make sure that they're doing all the right things to take care of themselves?
It's a hard question to answer. And I think one of the things that we think a lot about is advocacy for oneself, right? And sort of the awareness that we have individually to know when something is right or is wrong or is off. Now, there are lots of different strategies and sort of things people can do depending on what they're into to try to sort of like, help those experiences that they're having. But I think that until we realize that we're actually suffering, all of the prevention and all of the strategies don't really mean anything. And I think what happens in this industry a lot, and I think what happens in humans a lot, is we just become on autopilot for so long. We feel like the stress is normal. We feel like the deadlines are normal. We feel like feeling empty is sort of part of the process. And then one of the things that we talk about in one of our sort of first introductory workshops, which is like, what is mental health? Like, what does it even mean? And we sort of summarize it as the intersection between what happens in the outer world intersecting with what happens in our inner world. And what we train people to do and what we want people to do is understand when things feel off, because that's telling for them. And to be able to listen to that, and hopefully if they have somewhere to go, to advocate for themselves that they are not feeling okay. And now there are places to go to, and they can call places like us. We can help design strategies for whatever it is that they're going through. I think, Eric, it's easy for me and for us to just say like, meditation works and yoga works and eating well works. But we also know that like, sometimes it's really hard to do if you don't even know that you're struggling. And one of the best parts about our job is this is what we do. We get to learn about your personal experience, and we get to help you with whatever it is you're going through, whatever it is your interests are, to help you in a way to design something and to give you interventions that feel really good. So we're always a little hesitant to say like, here are the top 10 things one can do to take care of themselves. But we know when something's off in our body for the most part. Listen, reach out for help. There are lots of different places to go to should you need help. And like you said, Eric, earlier, I think we're normalizing this more and more to where if we need to speak up for ourselves, it is welcomed instead of resisted.
Yeah, that part, making it a conversation, right? And we see so much when we're working with teams of people where, you'll get a bunch of people in a room who have never, have all worked in the same production company or on the same tour and the same festival team and never have spoken to each other about their mental health issues. And then when you get them in a room together and, we sort of do the work to open people up a little bit about their experience, and they're like looking at each other and going, wait, you too? You also? Oh, boy, why didn't we ever talk about this? We work right next to each other and we're both struggling with the same thing. And so, that courageous vulnerability and the willingness to open the conversation in our workplaces. And I think we need to shift this industry's value framework from being a place where it's like we all puff up and pretend that like we've got it figured out and we're good, to all of us being able to be like, this is fucking hard and it wears on me, and I can share that with you, and it doesn't make me weak, and it doesn't make me less than, and it doesn't make me not great at what I do. It just means that I'm a human while I do what I do. And that allows for people within these little ecosystems to be able to come together and actually support each other a little bit.
Great. Music makes so many people around the world feel better about themselves, about their own well-being. So to take care of the people that actually create the music, where it all begins, is such a valuable and important endeavor. And I want to thank both of you guys for what you're doing to take care of our members, and hopefully this will become just, as you said, just sort of a normal part of the process is to take care of all these great music creators.
Amen.
Appreciate your time, and good luck in the year ahead, and hopefully I'll get to see you out there at a festival or something soon.
Yeah, totally. We'll look forward to that, and thank you, Eric. I think the more that we're able to have these kinds of conversations, and the more that people are able to listen in and connect to their own experience, and helps foster a little more openness, the kinder and warmer and healthier an industry we're all going to be a part of. And so we appreciate you having us out here.
I really love talking to those guys, and I love what they're doing. As a reminder, if creating music is your life, our mission at ASCAP is to support you every step of the way. And that means supporting the whole you. Our very own ASCAP Wellness Program is designed especially for our music creator members and is intended to help nourish your body, mind, and spirit so you can be your creative best. If you want to learn more, check out ascap.com/wellness. And here is my colleague, Sarah Feingold, with some other exciting news.
Are you ready for a brand new experience? Well, you're in luck. A one-day edition of the ASCAP Experience is coming to Los Angeles on June 21st, live and in person. Bringing together top songwriters, producers, and music industry experts, the experience will offer up a wealth of information and up-close connection with today's music creator community, exclusively for ASCAP members. Visit www.ascapexperience.com to get your tickets.
Well, that, as they say, is a wrap. Thanks to everyone who made this episode possible. Dr. Chayim Newman and Zack of Amber Health for being our guests, Sarah Feingold and Eitan Rosenblum for editorial support, Tiffany Sims for graphic design, Kate Cordova and Holly Grace Jamili for managing our social media, MXM Tune, Rosaline Scher, and Kellen Pomeranz for our theme music, and Benjamin Keynes of Sight Sense Productions for audio and video editing. If you like what you hear on VERSED, please tell your friends and neighbors and followers, comment on our YouTube channel, and share the podcast to help spread the word and grow our community. We'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.